Welcome to our pod. And by that, I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who are doing a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. Right now, we are shiting on the Wheel of Time, and we are covering the boys in the 10th book, Crossroads of Twilight. But before we get into that, Laura, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
I continued my Marvel Cinematic Universe journey, and I watched Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Bow, bow, bow. What was it?
Fine. I don't have anything to say. These movies are so predictable. The villains can be called out within 0.5 seconds. I think my thing with this movie where I just didn't understand what the motives were behind Kurt Russell, because it just didn't make sense to me that he would, like, this godlike entity would want to have all this power, and then what? It just was like, kind of, what happens then after he's consumed all the energy from all these other planets? Then what is the end goal?
I guess my biggest thing is, like, it's to become godlike. You know how, like,
he already
Christianity believes, but he's like a celestial being, but he wants to be like the god of the entire universe. You know, like, it's almost like, I would say it's almost like a Lucifer story, you know, like a fallen angel who wants to take control of heaven kind of thing.
I guess
that's the best way to describe it.
I guess watching it, I was like, what's the point after he absorbs all these planets with his glowing blob of goo? Then what? Like, okay, he just starts over and keeps making more children and making more things, and then he absorbs them again. Like, oh, okay.
Well, a lot of times villains just don't even know what they want. They just want power, and that's the whole thing. It's power corrupts. But also, it's a Marvel movie, so it's not that deep.
No,
I remember when I watched these, like, Chris Pratt was still, like, amazing and married to Anna Faris. So, like, This was before the fall of him. But I do remember feeling very weirded out by Yondu using the word daddy around Chris Pratt, where it was like, I always thought I was your daddy. And I was like, could we say dad? Could we?
First of all, I could never remember Yondu's name, and I kept calling him Xanadu. Until my husband was finally like, his name is Yondu. And I was like, because at one point I was like, I thought Xanadu was dead. They shot that thing off of his head. I thought he was dead. And he goes, no. And that thing is just for his weapon, his arrow that he whistles. And he's like, also his name is Yondu. I'm like, okay, well, make that clearer, because I thought it was Xanadu. But
I was pretty sure it was Xanadu.
I'm pretty sure it's Xanadu, actually, but whatever, think what you will.
Think what you will.
I did not enjoy this father-son storyline very much in this, because it was so, like, cliche, very, like, males can't have emotions.
I'm your daddy.
But the whole, like, I got to see all the other kids playing catch with their dad, and I wish my dad was David Hasselhoff. I'm not saying that these type of situations don't happen, that people are not disappointed with their fathers, or that fathers aren't sometimes horrible, or that people don't have father figures and desire to have them. Why is it always centered around playing catch? And why did he and Kurt Russell have to play catch with a green or a glowing blue, like, thing from their planet? Like, when that started happening, I was like, this is too much. They've taken the catch thing too far. If Chris Pratt and Kurt Russell have to play catch with this, it's gone too far.
Oh, that's amazing. I do know that, like, Kurt Russell was very into this, because it was Peter Quill's very 80s movie star for him, and he said he really liked the fact that he was playing the father of, like, someone he would have played when he was growing up. So I love Kurt Russell so much.
I like him too. Honestly, when they had, like, the flashback of him as a young person, I was like, dang, they kind of did a pretty good job making him look young. Usually that doesn't work out very well, but they actually did that well. But he actually kind of looks fairly young anyways. He's aged well.
He has aged well, but can I tell you that the amount of times I confuse Kurt Russell for Jeff Bridges is extraordinary.
Really?
Yeah, like, sometimes I'll be like, wait, was that Kurt Russell or was that Jeff Bridges in that movie? I couldn't tell you.
I never confuse Jeff Bridges with Kurt Russell because I love Seabiscuit so much, and also because I love the Big Lebowski. And I used to have a genetics professor who was so much like the dude, and he talked like him and dressed like him, but he was just like this long-haired man who was very obsessed with genes, literal genes, like DNA genes. And he was so smart, but it was just one of those things. If you ever went on Rate My Professor, they were like, the dude, everyone take his class. And it was a difficult class, but this was a cool guy.
I don't know, something about them, I just confuse their faces and I get them mixed up all the time. So Jeff Bridges was an Iron Man.
Like, Kurt Russell was like a heavier set person, or like was broader faced maybe.
But that's the thing, like they also are in a lot of similar movies, so if you already confuse their faces, it's really easy to impose one or the other and be like, I don't know, one of them was in that movie,
especially if they're like not standing right next to each other, you know, when you're trying to recall it, you're like, ooh, they often have long hair like that.
And that's the thing, like if you told me Big Lebowski, yes, I do know Kurt Russell was not in the Big Lebowski. And like if you were like Overboard, I know Jeff Bridges wasn't in Overboard. But some of their other lesser known movies, I just like get confused and I'm like, which one is that?
Like Iron Man, one of them was in that, and
one of them was in it.
He was definitely the villain.
I pulled up Jeff Bridges and it was like, yeah, he was in Tron. And I'm like, oh, he was the one who was in Tron. Okay.
I love this confusion.
I just get really confused by the two of them. So they also had like, I don't know, Kurt Russell was like the Disney kid, but like Jeff Bridges was also in movies growing up. So it's easy to like impose them because they both have really long careers and you know they've been in some duds. So
oh yeah. They're both kind of like actors that I kind of appreciate. Like I also talked to you about this because I watched Anastasia last night. And I was looking at the cast that was in that, and I was like, we just went overboard with some of these actors when we would have them in a movie and we liked them. We're like, must be in everything. And that was Meg Ryan, and that was Hank Azaria, and that was Christopher Lloyd. They were in everything. And I think that there's like some of these actors, like Jeff Bridges, not that he isn't in a ton of movies, or Kurt Russell isn't in a ton of movies, but it's one of those things where it's like they were definitely in bad movies too, and it wasn't always like immediately like people were like, oh, we got to have them in everything. You can definitely see the ups and downs of their career for sure.
Like Laura, which one was in the early 2000s movie Stick It as the gym coach?
Kurt Russell or
Jeff Bridges?
Jeff Bridges.
Yeah.
Well, Kurt Russell was in Sky High. So I'm going to say that it was Kurt Russell.
It's Jeff Bridges. See, it's easy to not know which one was in which movie.
I didn't see that movie, so I don't know.
Okay. It's a lot of women's sexual awakening, either into being bisexual or lesbian.
I didn't see it. So
one of my friends made us watch it over and over and over again. And she does in fact like women. So it worked. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, so have you been reading anything besides, you know, Jeff Bridges' biography?
Jeff Bridges' biography? I've not been reading Jeff Bridges' biography.
Damn it.
But no, I have not really been reading
anything. Okay. Nothing at all? You're still in your reading slump?
I thought about reading Monstress just because I wanted to see that, but and then I decided not to. But I got in a Holidaze because I was like, oh, Christmas book, I'll do that. So I have it on audio. I'll see if I can get through that in the next week and then have an update. Have you read that?
What is it?
In a Holidaze?
No, I do not know what that is.
I think it's a romance.
Okay.
I'm not for sure, but I saw a lot of people posting about it on Bookstagram. So
in a holiday. Okay. I recognize the front cover. I'm guessing that is a romance just from
it looks like a romance. And I was like, I don't really read a ton of romances, so I'll try.
I love this opening on Amazon. One Christmas wish, two brothers, and a lifetime of hope.
And lifetime of hope.
You gotta love some. Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. He also is holidays appropriate is one of the first questions.
Okay.
Okay, well, let me know how In a Holidays comes.
What have you been reading and watching?
So, along the lines of Marvel Cinematic Universe, I started watching the TV series Hawkeye.
Okay.
I would say that Hawkeye is my least favorite Avenger, mostly because Jeremy Renner kind of ends up being a piece of crap.
A boring person. Oh, that. Okay.
He has also like come out like as kind of wishy-washy when people pointed out that like female co-stars in the MCU weren't getting paid as much. Like he didn't rise to their defense, which is the bare fucking minimum you could possibly do, is defend them even if you don't care if they don't get paid as much as you do. Like, and so I am very underwhelmed by him as a person and as a human. And Hawkeye in and of himself seems like the toxic male bro of all the MCU people.
Cool.
So, I mean, the only thing interesting about him is like he's the one without any powers. But like,
does Natasha Romanoff have any powers?
Natasha Romanoff also doesn't have any powers. But
there we go.
She already had her movie, and he gets an entire TV series. And like, he also has like some secrets that come out. You don't know this yet, so I can't talk about everything. But this one is like, it also has a girl who's like obsessed with Hawkeye, and so she goes on a mission with him, and he's like, it's around Christmas time. And like, it's good for what it's bringing to the representation of the MCU. It sucks because of the people's reaction to the MCU, because it's like Haley, what's her name from Dickens and Pitch Perfect?
Steinfeld.
Haley Steinfeld is like the new kind of like Hawkeye, like handing down the mantle. And like, also Hawkeye in the original comic strips like end up being canonically deaf. So they do implement that into the TV series, which is really interesting. And I like what they're doing with that. I just don't like Jeremy Renner. And so it's interesting, but like, and then people are like going and the big bad of the TV series so far is a woman who goes by Echo, and she is a deaf Native Indian woman. And they actually hired a deaf Native Indian woman to play her. So win for representation. And she's going to get her own TV series. Love all of that. Here for it. I just don't care about Jeremy Renner in this show.
I'm going to ask you, do you think that we maybe like invest too much into these actors that we cast in this, where it's like, do we really need to have this many Captain America movies or this many of the Iron Man movies? And is it something where it's like these actors are just, we're putting too much into them, and it's just,
I think
we need new movies. We need new people.
We're putting too much into the MCU. Like they're trying to make them like comic books. And I don't need an entire TV series about Hawkeye. I don't. Like, I'm watching it because I'm interested to see where it's going, and I know it's going to set up further future movies. But like, Natasha Romanoff got a movie. Hawkeye can have a movie where he passes down the torch. We're hitting into this like fourth whatever phase of the MCU, and I'm definitely very drained from it. I don't get it. And like, there's too much. And
I will say that these comics are like so convoluted and hard to follow and everything, that it's difficult probably for them to, I mean, it's not difficult for them because they have the source material to make TV shows and movies, but it's probably difficult for them to like choose which way to go with these things, you know? Where it's like, would this one be a better movie or would this one be a better TV show? And they're maybe not making the best decisions with stuff like that. If it's like something like Hawkeye, where it's like, does this need to be drug out into 10 hours when we could have just had a 1.5 hour thing?
Needing it to be on Disney Plus also adds this like element, like, because I actually liked on Netflix when they had Daredevil, which he might be being reintroduced into the MCU via Disney, but they had it on Netflix. And I was like, Daredevil was an excellent TV series that was darker in its own tone. That was like, yes, it was in the MCU, but it's also outside the MCU. And I don't know why we keep having to make things where it's like, it's all interconnected and you have to watch it all or you're going to miss out. And that's the part where I'm just like, this is stupid.
And Disney Plus, what does Disney Plus have for adults outside of MCU?
Star Wars.
Okay. adults like me, I go on Disney Plus and I'm like, oh, I'm watching all my old Disney favorites. I watched Anastasia with the captions on, but I am not an average adult. And I just feel like my husband, if he were to just go on Disney Plus, he's just like, okay, I've got MCU. I've got
guys. The way I just owned Laura with that statement,
Star Wars
she
movies.
just shut down and moved forward. Like, you were just like, okay, I'm not going to address
it's not
that.
a Disney thing in my mind, though. Still, even though I know they own it and it's on there, I feel like they're not producing. I mean, they had the Mandalorian. Are they making more shows?
Yeah, they're making more Mandalorian, but
are they? Okay,
yeah.
well, maybe.
And I think there's been
it
some
just seems
stuff
like
in
the
works.
excitement around the Star Wars isn't the same as it is around MCU.
They have
You know what I mean?
Gargoyles on Disney Plus. I loved that show when I was
That was
growing
great.
up. That was such a good show. I've never wanted a human to date a gargoyle more in my life than with that TV show. Remember the sexual tension between this woman and a gargoyle?
All these cartoons where you were like, I prefer the beast form.
That gargoyle is really hot. Don't go for the news reporter, girl. You could do
Simba
better.
as a lion.
Simba as a lion, yes, please.
Ooh, okay, but I just don't know. Besides, like, nostalgia factor, if you remove MCU from Disney Plus, what are people buying Disney Plus for? Because they're not putting out a ton of new content besides just MCU.
Right. They have some stuff, but like it's stuff that I don't think about as Disney. Like I don't think about the fact that
they have a lot of documentaries. I've watched several of those actually.
They also have like Hidden Figures. They have like Remember the Titan. You know, they have stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's plenty to watch on there. That's not what I'm saying. I guess
It's just like, why would
just
people
thinking as far as new content? What are you doing to bring people in? Right. You know what I mean?
That's fair. Yeah, I'm not loving Hawkeye. It's fine. It's fine, but it's more fine because of all the extra characters in it. I just don't give a crap about Jeremy Renner whatsoever.
Yeah, I get that. Also,
I'm like,
I watched some of these movies that he's in. I don't think is Hawkeye worth giving a crap about. Like,
well, they do a good job of like, he did some bad stuff in Endgame that I won't get into because it's spoilery, and he has to like deal with the ramifications of that, and he's dealing with some PTSD stuff, which all interesting.
They killed some people that died in Endgame.
He's just like dealing with some other ramifications of like what he went through after some of the stuff that went down, and so I like all of that because it's about like, you know, owning up to your issues, but also parts of it I was just like, I don't care.
Right.
But anyway, for reading, I did stay up until 2 a.m. last night and I finished it this morning reading The Love Hypothesis.
I haven't heard about that.
By Allie Hazelwood. I originally got it. So my dad suggested that I get my little cousin a book for Christmas because I had gotten her some other stuff. And I Am Me, so I got her 4 books, and one of them was Love Hypothesis. She's like 19, so I was like, oh, I wonder if she would like a romance, but I hadn't read it yet, so I was like, I'll read it first. And I think I've come to the conclusion that I don't want to give her this book.
Why?
It's fine. The book is fine. But it is a Kylo Ren Rey fan fiction that was turned into a real book on Wattpad.
Are you kidding, or is it really?
I'm 1,000% accurate. Look at the front, look at the cover, and tell me that it's not Kylo Ren and Rey making out on the cover.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, it's definitely them. And so it was on Wattpad, and so then people loved this book, so then they created it into a real book. And because it's a Wattpad book, the problem with it is they didn't change enough of it. So like Wattpad is very specific, like fanfiction, where everything is chapter by chapter by chapter. And each chapter has to be its own contained thing on Wattpad because you're pushing it out, like, and then you'll write another chapter the next week, and you're not looking for a cohesive narrative. So each chapter was like, now they're here, now they're here, now they're over here, now they go to a conference, and this is day 1 of the conference, now it's day 2. You know,
well,
so
that's
like
very choppy, and I don't like that.
It's very choppy. Also, Allie Hazelwood, I don't think she intends to do this, but one of the characters is supposed to be pretty naive, Pretty naive.
Pretty naive.
Pretty naive. No, she's pretty naive. And she says that she feels like she's asexual, but what she actually means is she's only attracted to someone who she knows them on an emotional level.
Okay.
Which is not asexual.
Mm-hmm.
It's demisexual.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I understand that is supposed to be a naive, why do I keep saying naive? A naive person, but I think it's kind of harmful to have that in your book and misrepresent asexual people, because asexual people are people who do not want sexual relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And to have it said during a sex scene is not great in my book. And I didn't like it. Like, if you're going to say that, she should research it and say like, oh, I always said I was asexual. I'm sorry, that wasn't right. I'm demisexual. I need an emotional attachment to be able to have sex with a person.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't like that. And I don't want my 19-year-old cousin to have her first intricacies into it. And a lot of
it's kind of a bad thing, especially if people don't have any background or know what that is, to read something like that, because then they're like, oh, this is what it is, and you're like,
yeah,
no.
And that's a huge misrepresentation about asexual people, where it's like, you just haven't found the right person yet. And it's like, that's not true. Asexual people do not want to have sex, and there's nothing wrong with that. And during one of the sex scenes, of course, like in romance novels, he's always going to have like the perfect size dick. Sorry guys who don't read romance novels, that's just the thing. But there was a lot of talk about like how she didn't have too many sexual partners. So it described her in a way that
she
has
was
like
the
a
one
little
that was
bit
wrong.
No, it was more like, it kind of rings of like purity culture, where it's like, you're supposed to wait for your husband so that your vagina is ready for him and only him, you know?
Okay.
And like, the way it was described kind of showed like this like virgin myth kind of thing, where it's like, oh, you know, when women have sex, like it's supposed to feel like this, and that's not accurate. And I just think it portrays it in a way that like, I don't want to give that to a young impressionable girl. I'm a woman in my 30s. I can read the sex scene and be like, this is a little ridiculous. Like, it's steamy, and that's what you want in some romance novels. But it's not a great sex scene, even if I can read the sex scene. So I don't want to like put that on a 19-year-old girl. So I think I'm just going to get her beach read instead, or or the Chloe Brown book. Like, I think she would enjoy that.
Both those are not a bad gift. I think those would be great.
Right. And it's a healthy relationship that's about community. And that was the other thing. Like, I always love, and this is the thing, I stay up way too late reading these books because I'm always interested when the miscommunication gets resolved. And this literally waited until the last chapter to actually resolve a ton of the miscommunication. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, so they never have a conversation outside of the last chapter about the fact that they're actually interested in each other. Like, what is going on here? And sorry for like small, I do think it's a fun read. Enjoy the read. No one's looking for new wave romance stuff, but like, it wasn't my favorite romance this year. I was pretty disappointed in it. I did give it 3 stars originally, and then I lowered it to 2 because I kept thinking about all the issues I had with it. And I'm like, I just don't think it's on par with like the books I rated 3 stars that were romances. Cause like, I rated, spoiler alert, 3 stars. I really like spoiler alert.
I thought you really liked that one.
I did, but it just didn't feel like a 4-star book, you know? So it almost was like, spoiler alert, drove down the average for Love by Buzz. Because I enjoyed it. I stayed up late reading it. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it or I didn't think it was a fun book. I didn't think it was a great, stunning romance novel. And it was her first, and it was a Wattpad. So there was a ton working against her. It was just some of the more problematic things for me just felt. And also, like, I read a review where it's like, these 2 characters are boring. And I'm like, yeah, I only know like 3 things about each character.
Sure.
It just didn't feel great. And it's definitely a Kylo Ren Rey fan fiction. Like, all the characters are one-to-one amalgamations of other people in Star Wars.
Well then. Hannah, you said that you stayed up late watching or reading this. So are there like certain like types of books that you feel like you tend to be more willing to stay up late to finish, or try to power through? Like, I gotta know what happens.
Mostly romance or mysteries, I'd say. Something where the plot is really important to it. So like, emotional books, I'm usually tired and like I'm not a person who stays up late, guys. Like I'm a 10 to bed person, maybe midnight. So the fact that I stayed up until 2 a.m. trying to read to get to like at least a point where they were talking to each other and like showed interest in each other. Like if it's a plot-based book, I'm like, okay, I want to see what happens next. I don't have to have a full thought process of it. Like I'm reading a romance novel. I stay up until like 1 a.m. with both Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation. Because it's like, oh, I'm interested to see where the plot's going. I want to know what happens next. And that's the same with mysteries. But other books, I'm more likely to put them down because, like, although I'm very interested in them, I'm sleepy, and I want my full focus on them. I don't want to just be entertained. What about you?
I feel like romances are not ones that are going to keep me up, and I get with thrillers. I will not say mysteries. Mysteries, maybe I would be willing to stay up if it's a good mystery, but with thrillers I get frustrated with them a lot, especially when you get to a certain point and you're like, I know how it's going to end, and so I'm like, okay, I can just go to bed. I don't need to power through this.
Right.
I feel like I take romances at a slower pace. Maybe I just don't read them enough. And then, but for me, the ones that I feel like I stay up late to finish or have to like power through or can read really fast are ones where it's like, okay, really tragic stuff is happening here. And it can be any genre. Like if it's happening in fantasy or whatever, but when like really tragic stuff starts happening, I just get hooked into it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I gotta finish this. And I don't know if it's just like a classic, like my life is very like blessed and I don't have all sorts of bad things that happen to me. So when I read about something bad happening, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't stop. I gotta read all this. I don't know if it's something like that that's like hooking me in, but whenever I like start reading about something like tragic, I know you haven't read like The Kite Runner, or have you read A Thousand Splendid Suns?
I have read A Thousand Splendid Suns.
Well, both of those books, like really tragic things happen, and those are both books where I'm just like, I cannot stop reading this. And
well, that's nice.
And it's not really nice, but it's just one of those things. I don't know why sad, tragic books appeal to me, but they do.
I get it though, because it's like it makes you feel something, and that's always fun, you know.
And I do think it's just something about like having my experience where I've like, not that I've had like an easy life per se, but I definitely have had a good life where I haven't had multiple tragedies happen to me, but it's just something where I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot stop reading this, and you get hooked into a different person's experience.
Right. I think that makes sense. That's nice though. It's interesting to hear about what makes people stay up. But with that said, we really do need to discuss.
I know what
Perrin and Matt, I guess. Like Rand,
are they like the only ones that matter in this? I don't know.
What happened to Rand in this book?
Nothing really. I mean, he's got
you find out
doing some stuff for him.
You find out that like the Ashaman are pretty much going to break off of him, and he still doesn't care enough.
No,
like he still doesn't get it.
Still, like, I only care about the women that have died.
Okay. And he decides to send men to negotiate a truce with the Sen-Chen. So he's going to be overtaken with Sen-Chen. He's not going to know what to do. He's going to have to do this battle at least. I don't see how he couldn't not do this battle.
Put his trust in the wrong people. Okay.
But like, surprise. You still don't get the repercussions because he's not taking it seriously. Like Logain is like, you messed up here. And Rand is like, sure. Okay. And it's like, listen to the man. Like
he's kind of reverting back to some of these things that we were like, no, we don't like this about this character. And it's like, you had made so much progress. Don't stop now.
But he's just having sex with men and feeling the links of everyone else. And
kind of
that's about it. Like he's actually listening to Katsuye now. That's good. But like, this is such a thing where you and I have been talking about it, how he's definitely not paying attention to the Ashaman because he felt so guilty about them. But now he cleansed Saidin. He shouldn't be feeling, and one of our friends tweeted at us where they're like, just so you know, like, yes, he did cleanse Saidin. It's the fact that the ramifications of being sick for that long are still at play in these. So it does make sense that that's going on.
And thank you for that tweet.
So yeah, thank you very much. Pasha, you are one of our favorite people. You
We
always
love
tweet our episodes out
with you.
Yeah, you're very kind and very helpful. And so like, yeah, it's just one of those things where I don't know. It just didn't make sense. I don't know. It's a mess. He's a mess. I don't understand.
Okay. Agreed. Karen continues to look for Fael.
I do think like the whole watching Perrin chop off someone's hand.
He's definitely become kind of like, well, just in situations in this book, he's kind of become like that Ned Stark type character where it's like,
yeah,
this is how a leader has to do things. And he's like, got to do that. You know, I don't know a better way to describe it, where it's like, he's finally being put into these controversial leadership positions. And it's like, ooh.
I actually have a really good way to describe this because it's something you and I have actually said before, but I think it bears repeating.
So it's got to be perfect.
It's perfect. We're never wrong. There's an episode
always
about
right.
it. So we talked about early on how Perrin is the character that Rand could have been in a much weaker novel, where Perrin is forever the hesitant hero who wants to go home and he doesn't want to be there and he just wants to live on his farm with his wife or on his blacksmithery with his wife and have kids and be happy and be done. And that is the usual main character of a series like this. It's the reluctant hero who does nothing but what is good and right. And we slowly watch them have outside forces make them toxic in a way that they don't even like. And they are recognizing it the entire time. But they feel like they don't have any other choice. That's exactly who Perrin is, even in this book, where he had to make this huge choice because everyone was looking at him being like, you have to make this choice. You have to do this. You have no other choice. And so he does it. And then people are horrified because what they're asking of him is too much and no one should have this happen to them. And this is where I do think Jordan had a great idea with Perrin, Rand, and Matt, because he's showing three different heroes on three different journeys that keep getting intertwined with each other. And we don't just have to watch one hero do all the things the same way. And like Rand does things differently than Perrin. Rand isn't as loyal with his soldiers because he is a general who's leading an army. Perrin is one of the people who is down in the trenches. He is he was the reluctant hero. He's the one who's going to be down and dirty. He is going to be loyal to a fault. And he is going to have the messiest of situations where he gets betrayed the most because he cares the most.
Right.
And so watching him have to go through these things where he had to cut off someone's hands where Perrin doesn't want this life is pretty brutal to read through, where you're having to watch him like go out and he wants his wife back, but he has to remind himself that he's doing this for other people too. And no one trusts him anymore. And it gets to this point of like, the only person I can live for anymore is Fael because there's literally no one left for me.
Right.
And that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's really sad.
We talk about him being sad boy in all these books, but that scene really got
when you
to
consider
me.
his situation though, it's definitely like, oh, I feel bad that we joked about this because he actually has so many horrible things that he's dealing with.
Yeah, and he cares the most and he's lost everyone. He's isolated. And like the one person who wants to talk to him, he hates her. It's an abuser. She's what's her face is an abuser to him. So it's just heartbreaking to watch him in this book, Barrelane, thank you. And just understand that like Perrin is being pushed down this path that I think a lot of people would crack and break under, but he's so strong. But it's just, I felt for him a lot in those scenes in the novel. The whole searching for Fael, it only feels bad in context of like Fael is struggling and he is struggling because he has to lead these armies. And Perrin isn't a natural born, like Rand has learned to be a natural born leader and Rand's good at everything. Matt has like all this history in his mind. Perrin's literally doing the best he can and he knows what it means to get down and dirty, so he can tell his men to get down and dirty with him. But when you do that, you're watching men suffer. You're not coolly watching from the sidelines, where Matt is like, well, I know we have to do this, and I know we have to do this. And Rand, who's like, I can't be bothered with this. I have to do so many more important things that like, it just doesn't hit my radar. And parents sitting there like, no, guys, this matters. Why doesn't it matter to you? You know?
Yeah, you've definitely got like the king and then the historian and then the soldier type experience. So that's another interesting way that Jordan's able to like use these different facets of a main character or a hero and kind of put them all in different characters.
Agreed. So that was my big thing with Perrin, and I'm glad you said it because I had been thinking about it and you let it become to the forefront of my mind that I wanted to bring really that up.
Good analysis.
And then with Matt, I find it so funny that Matt, the man who is like, I doubt everything, meets the daughter of the 9 moons, and he's like, it was told she was going to be my wife, so I'm sold. Like, what?
It seems like such a character switch for him to just be like, oh, well, yep, this is it. Because usually he's the one that questions everything, but now he does it.
Everything a big deal. And he's just like, nope, this one, I'm going to go after this woman who I think looks like a 14-year-old, and we're going to get married. What?
Okay.
And then they're like, you didn't realize that was a marriage ceremony? And he's like, why would I?
Why would I know that? Like, this is not my custom.
Poor Matt, like, gets shot on so much in this series.
Yes.
Like, it's just like,
he really does.
And then he like tries to give her jewelry, and it's just like, obviously that's not going to work. You're keeping a woman enslaved. Like, this is not 7 brides for 7 brothers. It doesn't work like that.
No. And Matt, you probably don't have the same voice as Howard Keel, so it's just not going to work.
It's just not going to work. You don't sing that well. Well, no. It's just like, and also Tuon, like, calling him a toy. This man has been victimized over and over again, and I just feel sorry for him. It makes me sad.
Yeah, it is sad. Who else is there?
Tom's not doing anything. Julian's in love.
Oliver loves boobs. I mean, Oliver. Why do I always call him Oliver?
Because Oliver is a normal name, Laura. Oliver is just
literally, like, when I read it, I think in my mind I say Oliver.
I'm sure you do, because that's the normal one. Lan is married to Nynaeve. She's running around after him. Tom's reading a letter from Moraine. Moraine, come back already. I'm done with you being out of this book.
I was going to say, can we please get her back?
I will say that, like, and that's the thing, because the strongest parts about Matt are not his love interest, because he is victimized over and over and over again. What's interesting about Matt is he is the hero who does it, like, because he's in that situation or feels a very strong duty towards people. And that's also great, because like Perrin is all this, like, I'm being put upon. I have these people who rely on me, so this is what I have to do. And Matt is like, these people showed up for me, so I have to show up for them. Like, and there's an inherent loyalty about him that's so amazing. And then it's wasted on like, well, they said she was my wife, so
I know.
We do.
He tends to do that a lot, where he builds things up and then just like, no. And I just don't know how to feel about that a lot of the time, because sometimes it's just like, why was there so much buildup on this when you could have put that energy into something else?
Right? Why try to get Tuon to walk around with you? She doesn't seem that great. I think it's time to just feel bad that you have to end up marrying her. And like their marriage feels like it's going to be a nothing burger. Like, I don't see them having
I almost
a long
like feel
and
like this
life.
Is going to be like some type of situation where it's like they get married just because it's like prophesized, but they don't actually have a good relationship.
Like, they're not going to be around each other very often.
They're not going to be like Perrin and Fael.
And like, yeah, like Matt's not going to wherever the Sanshin came from. Like, that's the thing. Like, there's so many toxic relationships, and it's always the woman's fault. Like, no wonder people love these books for bad reasons. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Guys, you're going to hear a lot of screaming about this particular book, because it's not good.
No, it's not. No.
Well, and then you have like, what's his face, who's like, I thought I was going to be able to have sex with and like all of a sudden we have like sexual assault in this book, like where Fael almost gets sexually assaulted,
which was so unnecessary and random.
especially in a book where that's only been like the threat of sexual assault has only happened like maybe 2 times in the entire series. And all of a sudden you have Fail like in this dangerous position where she needs to be saved by a man who wants something from her. It just feels unnecessary. And like he was trying to ratchet up something that didn't need to be ratcheted up.
Exactly.
Like she's already a slave. Back off. We don't need this. And you didn't create a book about this. Like Wheel of Time is not Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones, it was pretty prominent very early on. This one, it just makes no sense for why all of a sudden he was like, well, what if this happened? No.
Exactly.
It didn't need to happen.
Completely agree. I'm sorry, that is my dog crashing around with a cone. He had to have surgery. He had to have surgery the other day, and he is not adjusting well to having a cone.
Poor Briggs.
They're very hard to navigate with.
Oh, poor buddy. You also have Devon Bashir, who's like, I hope nothing happens to my wife. And then 2 sentences later,
something happens.
Something happened to your wife. Oh, so and also your daughter is kidnapped. Too bad.
Oh. I did kind of enjoy that, like instant prophecy fulfillment.
It was such a weird choice to be like, I hope nothing bad happens to her. Something bad has happened.
Have you ever like seen episodes of 2 Words? I'm sure you have, where like somebody's talking and they like walk out on the street and it's like almost resolved and then boom, hit by a car, and you're supposed to laugh because it's a comedy show. It's not a tragic hit and run accident, but just it makes me think of that, where it's like, oh, we're almost resolved here. Boom, something bad happened.
That was my little cousin. We got him when his mom wasn't doing too well with cancer. We got him and his sister little ornaments, and we got him one where Spider-Man had like a bag of presents he was delivering to hang on the tree. And he was like, do you know why, to my sisters, he was like, do you know why Spider-Man is delivering the presents? And they were like, no. And they were expecting it to be like, Santa was sick, so he had to swoop in. And he was like, well, one night Santa was delivering presents and boom, he got hit by a plane. My sisters were like, I think he just killed Santa.
Oh my gosh.
He's now an adult man. We still laugh about that.
Oh my gosh. Well then.
Bam, he got hit by a plane.
Okay.
So yeah, that was Devon Bashir with his wife. His wife was Santa.
Basically, yeah.
Oh God. And then people think Egwene is having sex with what's his face, who's in love with Sion. And this book is terrible.
It was a bad book. This was the worst book.
Apparently the reasons the prologues are so long is because they're always like pre-released.
Okay.
So they're like released 6 months in advance. It would be better if you just released like the first 3 chapters then and make them 3 chapters.
Why?
I mean, the cover of Crossroads of Twilight is very silly. So
I dig the covers.
It's Matt with his little hat. And old man Tom, not Zaddy Tom.
This is another reason the show is canon.
Because Tom is daddy?
Tom is hot.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, well, fair enough. I guess that's all we have to say about it's sad when like we break it up all the episodes at girls. It's like, have we talked about Elaine, Min, Egwene, Avienda, Katsuyane, Nynaeve, and then we're like, hey, we talked about the 3 boys. Those are all the characters. Those are all the characters who actually have an effect on the plot. Like, who are we missing, guys? We tried to talk about Lan. He did nothing. Tom did nothing. Julian did nothing. The Ashaman who are hanging around Rand, they did nothing.
Nothing.
No one does anything in these books.
The end.
Robert Thorne do better. Okay, well, remember to rate, review, and subscribe to us. Rating, reviewing, and subscribing helps us reach more people. And we are excited to accept more and more people into the fold of Screaming About Book 10 with us.
Yes, enter.
make sure you're also listening to our TV Tuesdays. We have some stunning guests coming on who we're very excited for you to listen to. You can also find us on all social media platforms at Our Pod. That's OWWR Pod, and email us at ourpod@gmail.com. And we can't wait to finish up the Women of Wheel of Time next week of Crossroads of Twilight. And then we'll be taking a 1 week off break where we will be covering a Christmas book that you will definitely not need to read because we'll tell you all about it the last week of Christmas. So enjoy that episode. And we hope you guys have a great day. Bye.
Bye.